"You have sent me the wrong sister," Lionel laughed, not troubling to lower his voice. "I asked for the pretty one. This must be some clerk's error. Look at her, she is the companion, surely not the bride." Marcus, Duke of Padworth, stood at the tall window of the great hall and watched his younger brother greet the two women who had just been handed down from the traveling carriage, and said nothing, because he almost never said anything. But he watched. He had learned, in a life of being the silent elder to a golden younger, that a man who does not speak sees a great deal that a talking man misses. The arrangement had been Lionel's doing, as most foolish things were. A gentleman of ruined fortune in the north had two unmarried daughters and a name old enough to be worth marrying into, and Lionel, younger son, charming, spendthrift, in want of a dowry to keep him in horses and cards, had agreed by letter to take the elder. The elder was said to be a great beauty. But the family, playing a longer game, had sent both girls south to Padworth, the beauty and her plainer younger sister, in the hope that between the two of them one would come away a bride. The beauty was, indeed, a beauty. She stepped down from the carriage in a traveling gown finer than her family could afford, and she smiled at Lionel with the practiced radiance of a girl who had been told her face was her fortune since she could walk, and Lionel was visibly, instantly delighted with the bargain. The other one came down after, unassisted, in a plain gray pelisse, and no one looked at her at all. Marcus looked at her. He watched her turn at once, while her sister was being flattered, to thank the coachman, whom no one thanks, and to press something into the hand of the half-frozen postboy who had ridden through the sleet on the box. He watched her steady the elderly footman who slipped on the icy step, quietly, with a hand under his elbow, so deftly that the man's dignity was never touched. He watched her look up once at the vast grim face of Padworth, and instead of the calculation he saw in her sister's eyes, he saw only a kind of grave, tired wonder, as of a person who had never expected to see anything grand and was determined to be worthy of the sight. "The younger one," Marcus said. It was the first time he had spoken all morning, and his steward startled at it. "What is her name?" "Miss Prudence Hale, your grace. The elder is Miss Diana. It is Miss Diana that Lord Lionel is to." "I know what Lionel is to do," said Marcus, and said no more. They dined that evening, all of them, at the long table under the cold blazing chandeliers, and the whole performance of the thing was laid out for Marcus to read in silence, as he read everything. Diana shone. She was witty in the way that costs nothing and wins everything. She flattered Lionel and flattered the Duke and flattered the room, and she managed, Marcus noted it with the cold clarity that silence buys a man, to be charming to everyone who could do something for her and invisible to everyone who could not. She did not once address the servants who filled her glass. She spoke over her sister twice. When Prudence ventured a quiet observation about a book, an intelligent one, Marcus thought, sharper than anything her sister had said all evening, Diana laughed lightly and said, "Oh, Prue reads. Someone in a family must, I suppose, so the rest of us needn't," and the table laughed with her, and Prudence colored and looked at her plate and said nothing more. Lionel laughed loudest of all. Marcus watched his brother watch Diana's mouth and Diana's white shoulders, and thought that his brother had never in his life looked past the surface of anything, and had never needed to, being golden, and would marry this beautiful hollow girl and be perfectly happy for about 2 years. But it was the younger sister Marcus could not stop watching. He watched her slip out during the interminable dessert, and being a man who moved silently and knew his own house, he followed at a distance, and found her in the cold gallery, not weeping, not sulking, but standing before the great fire that the servants kept for no one, warming the hands of a shivering scullery maid who had been sent to fetch coal in nothing but a thin dress. "There," Prudence was saying softly, "warm them properly before you go back out. No one will miss the minute, and take my shawl for the passage. It is bitter, and I have another." She was unwinding her own shawl, her only good one, Marcus would have wagered, from her shoulders as she said it. "But, miss, you'll be cold." I have been cold before, Prudence said, with a smile that had no bitterness in it, only a plain acquaintance with hardship. It never yet killed me. Go on. The girl fled with the shawl. Prudence stood alone at the fire, and then she caught sight of the Duke in the shadow of the gallery and went very still. "Your Grace," she said, and curtsied, and was clearly mortified. "I forgive me. I should not have wandered. I only stepped out for a moment. I did not mean to." "You gave that child your shawl," Marcus said. It was not a question, and Prudence did not seem to know how to answer a statement, so she said nothing, only looked at him with those grave gray eyes, waiting, he thought, to be reproved. She had the look of a person who expected always to be reproved and rarely to be thanked, and something about that settled in Marcus's chest like a stone dropped into a deep still well. "My brother," he said, "is a fool." Prudence's eyes widened. "Your Grace." "He looked at your sister's face and thought he had found the prize of the family," Marcus said, in the longest speech he had made in a 12-month. "He is wrong. I have watched the two of you for a single day, and I have seen everything I need to see. Good night, Miss Hale. Keep near the fire. You have given your warmth away and have none left for yourself, which appears to be your habit." And he inclined his head and left her standing astonished in the firelight and went to his room and did not sleep. He was called the Silent Duke, and worse. The county had decided on the strength of his stillness that he was cold or proud or simple or cruel. A man who does not fill a silence is a canvas on which the talkative paint whatever they fear. Marcus had let them. He had learned young that Lionel was the one made to be loved, all light and noise, and that he himself was the one made to hold the estate together and say little and want nothing. And he had believed it so long that he had nearly forgotten there was a man inside the silence at all. But he could not forget the shawl. In the days that followed he did a thing entirely unlike himself. He sought her out. Not obviously, he had no gift for the obvious, but he arranged to be where she was. He found that she rose early and walked the frozen gardens alone, and so he walked them too, and they fell into a strange halting companionship, the silent man and the overlooked girl, in which neither felt any pressure to perform. She did not try to charm him. She could not have charmed him if she tried, having never in her life been given the least occasion to learn how. She simply talked, when he left room for it, about the books she had read and the frost on the yew hedges, and the way the light came over the eastern wood, and Marcus discovered that her mind was quick and deep and entirely her own, and that being near it was like coming in from the cold. "They will make a match of your sister and my brother within the month," he said to her one gray morning. "Yes," said Prudence. "It is what we came for. Diana will be very happy to be a great man's wife, and Lionel will be happy to have the prettiest bride of the season, and everyone will say how well it has all fallen out." She said it without bitterness, but Marcus heard, underneath, the sound of a girl folding herself up small to make room for her sister's happiness, as she had plainly done her whole life. "And you," he said, "what falls out for you?" She was quiet a moment. "I shall go home," she said, "and keep house for my father and grow older and be useful. It is not a tragedy, your Grace, it is only a life many have worse." She almost smiled. "I have my books." "You have," Marcus said, "sold yourself short since the hour you arrived, and I find I can no longer stand to watch you do it." She turned to him, startled. And Marcus, who never spoke, spoke. "My brother chose your sister for her face across a dinner table," he said, "the way he chooses a horse at a fair. I have watched him do it, and I have watched you, Miss Hale, and I tell you plainly, because I have no gift for saying things any way but plainly. Your sister has a face and you have a soul, and I have spent my whole silent life waiting without knowing it for someone with a soul. You gave your shawl to a shivering child in a house not your own. You thanked my coachman. You steadied my footman so gently he never felt the shame of the fall. You folded yourself small at that table so your sister might shine, and you did it without one drop of malice, and no one saw it, no one ever sees it, but I saw it, I see it. I have seen nothing else since the carriage door opened." He stopped, unused to so many words, and found her staring at him with her lips parted and her gray eyes filling. "I did not send for a bride. My brother did." But I am the elder, and the title is mine, and the choice, if I make it, is mine to make. And I choose you, Prudence Hale, not your sister, not the beauty. You, if you will have a silent man who has only just discovered he had anything worth saying and found it was all about you." For a long moment she could not speak at all. "They call you cold," she whispered. "I am not cold," Marcus said. "I am quiet. There is a great difference, and you are the first person in my life to trouble to learn it. Everyone else looked at my silence and painted a monster on it. You looked at my silence and simply talked to me as though there were a man behind it worth the talking to. Do you know what that is worth to a man like me? It is worth everything I have. It is worth a dukedom. It is worth being laughed at by my brother and gossiped over by the county for choosing the plain sister over the beauty. And I promise you, Prudence, they will laugh, and I will not care, because I have never in my life cared less for anything than I care for what they think, and never cared more for anything than I care for the look on your face right now." The tears spilled over, and she laughed through them, the way a person laughs when something they had entirely given up hoping for arrives anyway. "I thought," she said unsteadily, "that no one had noticed I was there at all." "I noticed," Marcus said. "I will go on noticing every day of my life. It appears to be the one thing I am good at." When it was announced, the house reeled. Diana's radiant composure cracked at last, for she had assumed, as she assumed everything, that if a duke were to be had she would be the one to have him, and to be passed over for Prudence, plain, overlooked, useful Prudence, was a wound to her vanity that no flattery could dress. She said several cruel things in the first hour. Marcus, standing silent and immovable at Prudence's side with her hand tucked into his arm, let every one of them fall into the great cold air of the hall and answered none, until Diana, finding no purchase against a man who would not fight, ran out of cruelty and was left with only the small mean fact of having been weighed against her sister, and found the lighter of the two. Lionel, to his credit, laughed genuinely, ruefully, the laugh of a golden young man who has just watched his silent elder brother do the single most surprising thing of their lives. "You sly devil," he said. "You never say 10 words together, and then you take the best of the two out from under my nose while I was busy admiring the packaging. I ought to be furious." He looked at Prudence, and something honest crossed his handsome, careless face. "But she gave my valet her own dinner when he was ill, did you know? Told no one. He told me. I suppose I chose the wrapping and you chose the gift." He bowed to her with real courtesy for once. "Be good to my brother, Miss Hale. He is worth more than any of us ever bothered to find out." Diana married a viscount within the year and was, as predicted, tolerably content with the arrangement, her vanity soothed by a coronet if not by love. But it was Padworth that filled that spring, with an astonishment no one in the county had thought to see, the silent Duke unlocked. For Prudence had been right about the difference between cold and quiet, and now that one person in the world had learned to hear him, Marcus found he had a great deal to say after all dry and slow and worth the waiting for, and it was all in the end for her. He gave her the great library and watched her cry at the size of it. He gave her a name the county learned to stop pitying and started to envy. And on the coldest nights of that first winter as his wife, when the wind came down off the moor and rattled the tall windows of Padworth, Marcus would find her, as he had found her the first evening, drawn to the fire, and he would come and stand beside her in his easy silence, and drape about her shoulders a fine new shawl, warm and soft and entirely her own, and murmur the only reproach he ever gave her, which was no reproach at all. "This one you keep, madam. You have given your warmth away your whole life. It is someone else's turn now to keep you warm." And she would lean into the silent man the world had misjudged, the elder who had seen her when no one else troubled to look, and be, at last and for always, exactly as warm as she deserved.